the four corners of the earth, including within America, Babylon the Great, the main place for our captivity. We are the Most High, Yahweh's chosen people of the nation of Israel. So without further ado, as always, in the Lashon Kadash, being holy tongue, is in the Paleo Hebrew, meaning the ancient Hebrew. We give all praises, glory, infinite honor to my power, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, who is the God of the living, Yahweh, by Hashem, Yahweh Shai, Barach Chorash, meaning all praises to the Heavenly Father, Yahweh, in the name of his only begotten Son, Yahweh Shai, and the Holy Spirit, whom is our strength and our Redeemer, and our light and our salvation. In the same tongue, I'm utter Mashiach Kabawadium, Laha Sequanium, Shal Gadarabaka, many double honors to the apostles and elder bishops, great millstone, for teaching and ruling well. And Shalom, honors and salutations to by Yashad Abadah, meaning the house of David, of the one-third elect remnant of the nation of Israel, along with the rest of the one-third elect men, women, and children of Israel. This is your fellow servant Malak Rayab, back at it again with another lesson through the spirit of prophecy, being a testimony of our Lord and Savior, Hamashaka Habashai, who the master of the world ignorantly referred to Jesus Christ. And it's a quick Harmageddon update on the biblical war of what is modernly referred to as World War III, which is prophetic, one of the very last, end time prophecies, or that will follow the mark of the beast. The next major prophecy being that chip, and this is another rumor of war that Yahweh prophesied about in St. Matthew the 24th chapter. Regarding two major conflicts that have recently, transpired down there in Syria. Okay, that's already been conquered, by the Mossad with the aid of the whore, America, Babylon the Great, through that successful military coup, that has overthrown the previous Bashar al-Assad regime over there in Syria and replaced it with a Al-Qaeda leader, a known terrorist, who's been endorsed by both Trump and Bibi Netanyahu, Bibi Milikowski over there in the land of Israel. But nonetheless, this is why, these devils continue to attack Syria, and because they ultimately want to become the ultimate hegemony in the so-called Middle East, to take full control of the oil, and so forth. So this is on AlJazeera.com. It says, why did the Israelis bomb Syria? A look at the Druze and the violence in Sawadia. All right. It says the Israelis has launched a series of intense strikes on Damascus, Syria's capital, intensifying a campaign it says is in support of an Arab minority group. Syria on Wednesday strongly condemned Israeli attacks, denouncing the strikes as a dangerous escalation. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs accused the Israelis of pursuing a deliberate policy to inflame tensions, spread chaos, and undermine security and stability in Syria. And that's exactly what they're doing. All right. It says the strikes eliminated 3 people and injured 34, according to Syrian officials. Here's what we need to know. What happened in Syria on Wednesday, which is yesterday, the Israelis carried out a series of airstrikes on central Damascus, hitting a compound that houses the Ministry of Defense and areas near the presidential palace. The Israeli military also struck targets in southern Syria, where fighting between Druze groups, Bedouin tribes, and Syrian security forces has continued for more than 4 days. According to the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights, more than 250 people have been eliminated in Sawadia province during the clashes. All right. So that's pretty much a quick synopsis of what happened, which I'm going to go into why it happened. Okay. As you can see here, we'll bring up this information. This is on the Times of Israel, reported last year. It says Iran's top commander in Syria eliminated in an airstrike. Tehran blames the Israelis, vows revenge. Iran accused the Israelis Monday of carrying out an airstrike on a building next to Iran's embassy in Damascus that eliminated 7 members of the Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps, including the top Iranian commander in Syria. So they've been those devils, on behalf of the Israeli Mossad, through the Israeli government, through the Israeli Defense Forces, have been known to attack, notorious to attack, the entire Iranian military chain of command, including, their proxy militants such as, Hezbollah's Hassan Nasrallah recently, and really the entire military chain of command in Hezbollah, all right, based out of Lebanon, that they have accused of carrying out attacks from Lebanon. Hence why I believe it's the Houthis that carried out an attack on them on October the 1st, which is another Iranian proxy military group. So this is why they've been attacking Syria. Okay, because Iran is linked to Syria. Okay, within that alliance, and that's why they ultimately overthrew that former Bashar al-Assad regime and replaced it with this puppet interim leader, which is a former Al Qaeda leader. So it says the strike in Damascus area municipality of Meza hit a building adjacent to the Iranian embassy. Footage showed. It says, though the Israelis has not commented on the strike, the New York Times cited 4 unnamed Israeli officials as confirming the country was behind the attack. All right. Says a Reuters report said a building and embassy compound was flattened in what it said was a startling apparent escalation of conflict in the Middle East that was pit the Israelis against Iran and its allies. All right. Iran's SSN News website said the targeted building was Iran's consulate and ambassador's residence. The IRGC, in a statement carried by Iranian media, announced the deaths of 7 members, including a senior-most official in Syria, Mohammad Reza Zahedi, and his deputy, Mohammad Haj Brahimi. All right, so let me see. He was reportedly responsible for the unit's operations in Syria and Lebanon, for Iranian militias there, and for ties with Hezbollah, and thus the most senior commander of Iranian forces in the 2 countries. The Israeli Army radio said Zahedi oversaw all Iranian terrorist operations against the Israelis from Syria, see that, Lebanon, and the Palestinian sphere. All right. So let me jump down. But yeah, it says why Israelis does not, as a rule, comment on specific strikes in Syria, as admitted to conducting hundreds of sorties against Iran-backed terror groups attempting to gain a foothold in the country over the last decade. The Israeli military says it attacks arms shipments believed to be bound for those groups, chief among them Hezbollah. So this is why they've been attacking, various, weapons depots and, embassies, Iranian embassies in Syria, because they've been attacking Iran from, accusing Iran rather of attacking them in Israel from Syria. And this is why they further justify carrying out these airstrikes on Syria under the guise of terrorism, which is hypocritical, okay, for the fact that they have endorsed a clear former terrorist who is now the leader of Syria on behalf of the Israeli government and America. So this is on the Independent platform. It says Trump praises young, attractive ex-terrorist Syrian leader Ahmed al-Sharaa. A few months ago, Trump shook hands with Syria's Islamist ruler on Wednesday, the first encounter between the 2 nations' leaders in 25 years and a potential turning point for Damascus as it struggles to emerge from decades of international isolation. The U.S. president warmly greeted former al-Qaeda fighter Ahmed al-Sharaa in a historic meeting unthinkable only a few months ago. So why is it unthinkable? Because this is the very group that I just highlighted that Esau has claimed. Esau, Edom, the self-proclaimed white man, the devil the Bible speaks of, the man of sin and son of perdition, has claimed to be behind Blind 11. Right, that event that happened 24 years ago in New York. So why the hell are they endorsing them? Because the corruption of this devil and this Edomite hegemony as a whole is being exposed. And this is why it was the Republicans that voted to not release the Epstein files. Which is not a coincidence that the current president is a Republican. So this is all in all, this further exposes you Edomites as being the devil the Bible speaks of. Okay, on behalf of your father Esau. Okay. Hence the vile, corrupt, profane nature of you devils being exposed. Okay. So it's not, we ain't gonna, further elaborate on that. The point has been made there. And here's Bibi Netanyahu endorsing the same leader, Ahmed al-Sharaa. This is reported on jfeed.com. Okay. Recently, it says Netanyahu's Syrian leader to meet in D.C. for landmark peace talks backed by Trump. Israeli Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu and Syrian President Ahmed al-Sharaa are set to meet in Washington to discuss a potential security agreement and normalization. a significant step for the long hostile nations. The UAE mediated talks tied to U.S. diplomatic efforts face challenges over Israelis' control of the Golan Heights and Syria's new leadership stability. See, and this is a further, indication or further fulfillment of the prophecy in Jeremiah 49:21. How the least of the flock will lead them out. I was going to bring that out. Jeremiah 49 and starting in verse 20. It says, "Therefore hear the counsel of the Lord, Yahweh by Shemeshai, that he had taken against Edom, and his purposes that he had purposed against the inhabitants of Teman," representing the Germans. "Surely the least of the flock shall draw them out. Surely he shall make their habitation desolate with them." Okay. So the least of the flock of the nation of Edom are these Amalekites, small in nature, but great in authority on behalf of the Zionist bankers. Okay. In their facade that they're the chosen people, that these, even these Orthodox JEWs further represents, and that's why they rely on heavy military aid from the whore, America, Babylon the Great. Okay. Representing the wicked covenant cast of all evil that wields the power of the hands in the earth to perpetuate evil, prophesied in Psalm, the 58th chapter. Okay. Around the second verse. Okay. So I'm going to play a couple of videos. I'm not going to make this too much longer because I gotta go and head out. I'm going to play a couple of videos, and I'm going to start here in fair use.
Was done, and then I open up social media and I go, Jesus fucking Christ, bro, what is happening now? And it turns out Israel launched another massive war against Syria. So let me show you here. This person says, breaking, this is not Gaza. This is not Beirut. This is Damascus. Israel is raining bombs on Syria's capital, targeting civilian neighborhoods and government sites in one of the oldest cities on earth, a city that has stood for over 11,000 years. So not only do they attacked the presidential palace. They did a bombing campaign against the presidential palace. Watch this.
قصف جديد قصف جديد يا شباب قصف جديد مبنى هيئة الأركان خالص قصف جديد يا شباب قصف خذونا بسرعة 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 قصف ثاني دمروه نعم قصف هيئة الأركان بغارتين نعم قصف بغارتين استهدفت هيئة الأركان بشكل مزدوج من اليمين ومن اليسار شاهدنا قطع من المبنى تتطاير حقيقة على ما يبدو أن المبنى قد تعرض لأضرار كبيرة جدا.
So that's one angle you can see. There's another one here where this is a news outlet and the background is the presidential palace, and watch what happened live. So Israel is at it again, y'all. Now, by the way, here's a nice little cherry on top of the story. If you were wondering, why now? Well, Netanyahu is currently on trial. He's on trial. I mean, shit, he's got like multiple court cases. He got like 3 or 4 different ones. He's a massively corrupt goon. And so he was on trial. And then, would you look at that? They launched a massive attack on Syria. So now trial is adjourned. Sorry, we can't complete, the festivities for the day. We can't get to the bottom of this because the prime minister is needed to carry out another massive war. So just incredible. So and it sounds like tinfoil hat stuff. It sounds like conspiracy theorist stuff to say, like, one of the reasons they did it is because Netanyahu is desperately trying to get out of court. But like, 2 + 2 = 4, dog. And he was in court when this was happening, and then they adjourned it so he can go handle this. Now, by the way, we also have this. Israel Katz, the defense minister, said, the warnings in Damascus have ended. Now painful blows will come. The IDF will continue to operate forcefully in Suwaida to destroy the forces that attacked the Druze until their complete withdrawal. Our Druze brothers in Israel, you can rely on the Israel Defense Forces to protect your brothers in Syria. Prime Minister Netanyahu and I, as Minister of Defense, have made a commitment, and we will uphold it. So let me give you some backstory as to what's going on here. When Bashar al-Assad was overthrown, basically the person who replaced him was a former leader of an Al-Qaeda branch in Syria.
And we just read about that. Okay. I digress.
He was the former leader of al-Nusra. So this is an al-Qaeda jihadist who basically became the de facto president or dictator for Syria. And as a direct result of that, the idea that, oh, he's enlightened now and he's evolved now and he's not an extremist anymore, that was bullshit. And so the Syrian government has carried out atrocities against Druze and other minority communities in Syria since they took power, right? But at the same time, the Syrian government was carrying out those atrocities, they were also basically sending signals to Israel saying, hey man, we'll give you parts of the country. You can have massive swaths of the country, but let's be allies. Let's be friends. Let's not go to war with each other. Let's sort of take it easy here. We won't rock the boat if you won't rock the boat type stuff. But what Israel is doing is they're looking at it, and now they're using the issue of the attacks against the Druze to gin up now support for a war in Syria, because effectively what Israel wants to do is topple the government in Syria and create a greater Israel.
And that's it. And ultimately, that nefarious plot, includes the destruction of Syria, which is prophetic. So let's go and get that. Let's get that next. Isaiah 17:1 says, a burden of Damascus, the capital Syria. Behold, Damascus is taken away from being a city, and it shall be a ruinous heap. Okay. And history is repeating itself. Okay. Why is that? Okay. 2nd Ezra 5:42. All right. And it says, and he said unto me, I will liken my judgment into a ring, like as there is no slackness to the last. Even so, there is no swiftness to the first. Meaning what? Judgment comes full circle. Okay. In which judgment can, judgment is, the similar judgment that took place in times past can resurface, man. Particular, land masses of, what I'm saying, with the geographical areas in the earth, representing these nations. And this is why Syria is being touched. Why is that? Okay, let's go ahead and get 2 Kings. 2 Kings chapter 13 and verses 1 to 6. I'll run through this briefly. Quick synopsis on the nation of Syria, known as the Aramaeans, or the nation of Aram, that oppressed the nation of Israel. All right, as it says in Jeremiah 30:16, man, all these nations that have oppressed the nation of Israel will be touched. They will be judged. Okay, so I'll get that next. 2 Kings 13:1. In the 3 and 20th year of Joash, the son of Ahaziah, king of Judah, Jehoash, the son of Jehu, began to reign over Israel and Samaria, and reigned 17 years. And he did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord Yahweh, and followed the sins of Jeroboam the son of Nebat, which made Israel to sin. He departed not therefrom. And the anger of the Lord Yahweh was kindled against Israel, and he delivered them into the hand of Hazael, king of Syria, and into the hand of Ben-Hadad, the son of Hazael, all their days. And Jehoash besought the Lord Yahweh, and the Lord Yahweh hearkened unto him, for he saw the oppression of Israel, because the king of Syria oppressed him. And the Lord Yahweh gave Israel a savior, so that they went out from under the hand of the Syrians, and the children of Israel dwelt in their tents as before time. There's another reason why our forefather Jeremiah said in Jeremiah 2:14, why? He said, why is Israel a homeborn slave? Why is he spoiled? Roughly paraphrasing. Because in every, secular period of history, Jake has been in slavery. The descendants of Jacob, so-called Negro, Latino, Native American Indians, Israelite foreigners of the same pedigree or bloodline, whom are the authentic Israelites, not those gutter rats in the land, the Holy Land, perpetuating to be us. Okay, so this is part of the nefarious plans of the leaders of, the sect of this nation, the Edomites, on behalf of the chief family of the Edomites, the Amalekites. Okay, the modern day individuals over there, the modern day Amalekites in the land, perpetuating to be us, known as the Israelis and such, that are perpetuating these wars to keep that lie going, all right, and to abstain themselves from guilt. Hence why Bibi Netanyahu, okay, over there, the prime minister of the Israelis, okay, continuing these onslaughts of war, okay, to further distract people from, the international crimes of these war crimes he has committed, okay, on behalf of these so-called Muslim nations and so forth. But this is the part of the least of the flock in Jeremiah 49:20, drawing these nations out into this last world's war, ultimately be judged, as is prophesied in Joel the 3rd chapter. And they'll all be drawn into the land of Yahweh Shaphat, okay, which is the land of, which means Yahweh judgment within the so-called Middle East, okay, around the Persian Gulf, the Euphrates River, around the Strait of Hormuz, a top geopolitical area. Okay, the Suez Canal, another a top geopolitical area of where a lot of oil is transported. Which these wars being perpetuated against those so-called Muslim nations, mainly of Ishmael, okay, so-called Arabs and Iran, okay, the modern-day Persians, will further lead to the oil prices, significantly increasing, which is all, part of Esau's Hegelian dialectic, order out of chaos, to further usher in this new dystopian future, or this totalitarian technocracy where everyone's lives are regulated through the chip. And that's why we keep hearing about the chip, because these last two major prophecies go hand in hand. One will happen and then the other one will happen soon after that, because like a snowball effect, which ultimately spells doom for Esau Edom. So this is 2 Kings 13:6. Nevertheless, they departed not from the sins of the house of Jeroboam, who made Israel sin, but walked therein, and there remained the grove also in Samaria. Okay, so our people, being idolatrous in nature, which is the first commandment of transgression against the first commandment of the holy covenant of Yahweh by Shem Yeshai's law, statutes, commandments, gave us over to the hands of our enemies, including Syria, the biblical nation of Edom, okay, getting jacked up as we speak, prophesied in Isaiah 17:1 over there by the Amalekites, and the Amalekites that will get jacked up by Russia, prophesied in Revelation 20:9, and their allies. Okay, why is that? It's Jeremiah 30:16. And it says, therefore all they that devour thee shall be devoured, and all thine adversaries, every one of them, shall go into captivity. And they that spoil thee shall be a spoil, and all that prey upon thee will I give for a prey. Point blank, period. Okay. So to go back to Jeremiah, so all of you nations that have touched the nation of Israel, oppressed us, had us under your subjugation, or captivity, oppressing us in any which case, you're going to be judged in this last world's war. Jeremiah 49:20 from the top. Therefore hear the counsel of the Lord Yahweh by Shem Yeshai that he had taken against Edom, and his purposes that he had purposed against the inhabitants of Teman. Surely the least of the flock shall draw them out. Surely he shall make their habitation desolate with them. The earth is moved at the noise of their fall, at the cry. The noise thereof was heard in the Red Sea. Okay, in the so-called Middle East. It's Revelation 16:12. It says in the sixth angel poured out his vial upon the great river Euphrates, and the water thereof was dried up, that the way of the kings of the east might be prepared. All right, the kings of the east within the eastern hemisphere. All right, specifically within the northeastern hemisphere, where the kings of these heathen nations in that area will collectively conspire to wage war against a whore, America, Babylon the Great, identifying America, Babylon the Great, as a common denominator of the world's perpetuated calamity and mayhem, distress, anguish, and ultimately destruction through their war provocations geoeconomically, through the tariffs and sanctions, including against Russia. So leading to the next article. Okay. You see, this is, let me see. Bring this out here. This is on AP News. I think there's another one I wanted to bring out as well. Let me see if I could. Let me see. Anyway, yeah, this is on AP News. Says Russian attack targeting Ukraine's energy infrastructure injures at least 15. Russia pounded 4 Ukrainian cities overnight into Wednesday, injuring at least 15 people in an attack that mostly targeted energy infrastructure, officials said. And this is part of another fulfillment of the release of the flock, the Israelis drawing these nations out into this war, because Ukraine is modern-day Khazaria, the home of the Amalekites that migrated from the area near the Caucasus Mountains. Hence your current identity, Caucasians, into the Holy Land. That, due to the Balfour Declaration by the British government and a Zionist devil, Lionel Walter Rothschild. So it says the latest bombardment in Russia's escalating aerial campaign against civilian areas came ahead of a September 2nd deadline set by U.S. President DJT for the Kremlin to reach a peace deal in the 3-year war under the threat of possible severe Washington sanctions if it doesn't. You see that? More geoeconomical war provocations. No date has been publicly set for a possible third round of direct peace talks, okay, within that 50-day deadline Trump gave Putin. Between delegations from Russia and Ukraine, 2 previous rounds delivered no progress apart from prisoner swaps. So, Putin's not taking Trump seriously, man. Okay? It's basically saying, F your peace deal. Pull up and do something about it. So let Freddie call in the bluff of the whore America, Babylon the Great. Why? Because this place, mighty to Egypt, prophesied in Isaiah 19 and 3, is losing its power. As it says, Egypt is losing, Egypt would lose, Egypt. Matter of fact, let me get that real quick. Okay. Isaiah 19 and 3. And the spirit of Egypt shall fill the midst thereof. All right. The enchantments of the America, Babylon the Great, which is a source for strength, witchcraft, through the politics, their media, controlling their narratives of Esau's NWO agenda and so forth. And I destroy the counsel thereof, and they shall seek to the idols and to the charmers and to them that have familiar spirits and to the wizards. And this is further why MAGA is really a dark occult, including, Elon's dark theme of MAGA, dark MAGA, okay, which I broke down in times past. But anyway, that's pretty much the point. That's pretty much the point there. Okay. But some U.S. lawmakers and European government officials expressed misgivings that the 50-day deadline handed Putin the opportunity to capture more Ukrainian territory before any settlement to end the fighting. This is exactly what he's doing. Okay. So let's play this last video. Fair use.
20%. So,
Let me wind this.
Ukraine tonight. 17 explosions in a matter of minutes. 17 explosions.
oh shit.
Across the city, one of the largest cities in Ukraine tonight. According to officials there, most of the strikes are targeting a civilian area in Kharkiv. The attack coming as stunning new details are emerging about a phone call. A phone call.
Let me go to say shalom to you, beloved Akim, on the comment board, beloved brother Kawas Malak out there, GMSLA. All right, out there, I believe the brothers out there in Lancaster. The beloved brother Yawasop, GMS Yawasop, Hopeful Lek 777. Yahba Shem Shabrak to Akim Watawada for tuning in.
Between President Trump and Zelensky. Now, it is the Financial Times that had obtained much of this information, and they are reporting that Trump asked Zelensky on this call, this is what the FT says, Volodymyr, can you hit Moscow? Can you hit St. Petersburg too? The FT says this is according to multiple people familiar with the call.
You can't make this shit up, man. You devils are being exposed. And first of all, Volodymyr Zelensky is another puppet, a fairy, entertainer, okay, who they just set up as some puppet. Like it was a part of the modus operandi, a track record of Esau. Just like the current leader in Syria, a former Al-Qaeda leader. I digress.
Sources who tell the FT that Zelensky then responded, absolutely, we can if you give us the weapons. Now, people briefed on the call, which took place one day after Trump spoke to Putin, said that Trump spoke about, quote, making the Russians feel the pain. So with all of this, Trump, of course, was asked about this today. Here's what he's saying publicly.
Should Zelensky target Moscow or deeper into Russia? No, he shouldn't target Moscow.
All right, well, that's what he's saying publicly.
Yeah, because that would be very bad for us.
Privately, of course, could be a different matter. Sources tell CNN that despite Trump...
An attack on Moscow would be an enormous, like a direct attack would be an enormous, with real weapons, enormous escalation.
Public comment.
Yeah, no shit. Yeah, why? Because Russia is one of the leading nations or empires that possesses thermonuclear warheads, okay, along with the U.S., with Fred exposed their hypocrisy for looking to overthrow these various nuclear regimes on behalf of North Korea, Iran, looking to absolve them from their uranium enrichment, which is a key nuclear ingredient that develops nuclear weapons, even though Iran vowed or agreed to not develop nuclear weapons through the JCPOA Iran nuclear deal back in 2015 under the Hamite, sodomite Obama. But who rescinded from that peace treaty? It was Esau. It was another part of his track record. He's always been known to be a truce breaker, pursuant to Psalm 55 and 20, including all the treaties he broke with the so-called Native American Indians of the tribe of Gad of the nation of Israel. Okay, so this is what he does. Okay, he severs ties and burns his bridges. Okay, all for his his covetous aspirations as the niggard that he is, meaning what, a stingy, covetous person. This is why the world is rising up against you devils. Okay, even your own allies. Who, in case in point, speaking of allies, who severed the alliance between Russia? Okay, it was you devils, man, for breaking another truce. Okay, of agreeing not to expand your NATO military territories eastward, into Russian territory. And this is exactly what you did, the Ukrainian proxy war. That's why Putin sat down with what's the name? Sleepy creepy Jim Crow Joe Biden. Okay, Fire Marshal Bill. Okay, like the elder Hawaii refers to that devil by way of. And Biden sat down with Putin, and Putin told Biden, warned him that they would escalate, okay, the Ukraine, proxy situation, if the U.S. Continued to renege on that deal around the end of the Cold War in the early to mid '90s and further expand their territory into Russian territory. So that's a fair proposition, and just right on time. These Edomites in America further reneged on that deal and did exactly what Putin warned them not to do. And now here we are, 3.5 years later, where the Ukrainian military force has been depleted beyond measure, which the projected fatality rate is up to at least 1 million. So I digress.
He has not ruled out giving Zelensky new offensive weapons that Ukraine has long requested and previously been denied, like joint air-to-surface standoff missiles. Now, those missiles, perhaps not the range for Moscow or St. Petersburg, but they do go about 230 miles. And what that would do for Ukraine is put possibly 30 Russian additional air bases, 30, at risk. So Russia tonight is responding, and they're responding by going right there, all the way to the jugular, as they have done.
And just so you guys know, to bring you guys up to speed on a little bit of this stuff, Russia, right, Ukraine launched a surprise attack and destroyed a bunch of their planes about a month ago, right? And there's just been constant escalation since Ukraine has done that operation. Very similar to what Israel did to Iran, by the way. They got behind enemy lines. They launched drones from behind enemy lines and took out a bunch of prize targets. This seems to be like the new modus operandi, where you're getting behind intelligence, you're getting behind enemy lines with your intelligence service, and then launching drones from within the country, right, to destroy high value target items.
In other moments,
I just spoke about that. Esau's modus operandi, man, his MO, his track record, what makes him who he is. Okay, using his intelligence and his military-industrial complex and the guise of democracy to hide behind his nefarious plans of obtaining the world's resources, okay, and eliminating the leaders of these respective nations he invades, and and inspects through his intelligence agencies, to eventually eliminate them and replace them with puppet leaders that they can trust to carry out their agenda. You see, so. Hence the Ukraine proxy war. So this is Jeremiah 50:9. And it says, "For lo, I will raise and cause to come up against Babylon an assembly of great nations from the north country," okay, with the northeastern hemisphere of the world, including Russia, North Korea, Iran, those other, dragons of Arabia, okay, that will band together against a whore. All right, prophesied in 2nd Ezra 15th chapter. It goes on to say, "And they shall set themselves in array against her. From thence she shall be taken. The arrows shall be as of a mighty expert man. None shall return in vain." Her arrows, those proverbial arrows that our forefathers envisioned, by way of the best way they could describe these nukes. Because they didn't have this manner of technology back then. So these arrows, they envisioned through these premonitions and visions and such, are what? These nukes, man. Okay? That are going to be shot from that region, the northeastern hemisphere of the world. okay, including by way of Russia. This is Ezekiel 38 and 10. Let me get this. Ezekiel 38 and 10 to verse 12 in the AMP. All right. It says, thus says the Lord God Yahweh by Shem Yahushai, it will come about on that day that thoughts will come into your mind and you will devise an evil plan. Okay. Verse 11 in AMP, Salakia. And it says, and you will say, I will go up against an open country. I will come against those who are at rest and peaceful, who live securely. All of them living without walls and having neither bars nor gates, especially in America. And that's why the former Edomite general Mark Milley admitted that America cannot defend itself against the hypersonic missiles against Russia and even China. So what more so ICBM missiles that can travel top Mach speeds and reach this place within 20 to 30 minutes, fulfilling the prophecy in Revelation 20 of this place, America, Babylon the Great, being destroyed in just 1 hour. So here's the main point, Ezekiel 38 and 12 in the AMP, and it says, to take spoil and seize plunder, to turn your hand against the ruins which are now inhabited, and against the people who are gathered from the nations, who have acquired cattle and goods, who live at the center of the world, Israel. Okay, the Gentiles. Okay, in St. Luke, the 21st chapter, that was to inhabit that land until the fulfillment of the Gentiles will be to fulfill until you will be removed from that land. And that's why a great purging through fire is going to come upon that land. It says here, Revelation 20, I'm starting at verse 8. All right, King James Version. And shall go out to the sea, start at Salakia, verse 7. Salakia. Start at verse 7. And when 1,000 years are expired, Shaitan should be loosed out of his prison, referring to the physical counterpart of Shaitan, the Edomites. Okay. All right. Specifically around 1435. Okay. Around it's like 1453, around the time where Jake fell, the Byzantine Empire, or the Eastern Roman Empire. All right. So-called Negroes, the Southern Kingdom. Okay. Under Muslim authority and influence, okay, that were ruling you devils, okay, for about 1,000 years, okay, who fell, okay, and this is a further fulfillment of you being loosed out of your prison within the Renaissance period, okay. So this is verse 8, and shall go out to deceive the nations which are in the four quarters of the earth, Gog and Magog, Gog representing Russia, Magog, the modern land of Russia. Hence why you look up a ancient geographical map of Magog, it equates to modern day Russia. So it says, and shall go out to deceive the nations which are in the four quarters of the earth, Gog and Magog, to gather them together to battle, the number of whom is as the sand of the sea. Here's the point of verse 9. And they went up on the breadth of the earth and compassed the camp of the saints about in a beloved city, and fire came down from the Most High God Yahweh by Shemeshah out of heaven and devoured them, right? Because that fire is going to come down within the production of the miracles in Revelation 16 of how you devils were to establish these nukes through the Manhattan Project during World War II on behalf of the modern day Temanites, referred to in Jeremiah 49 and 20, which you Germans, okay, hence, including J.P. Oppenheimer, you see, through these ICBM missile warheads specifically, okay, projected 1 million degrees fire, all right, of these nukes, these 200 million ICBM missile warheads, okay, all right, prophesied in Revelation, the 9th chapter, simultaneously along with the concentrated heat being unleashed from the heavens from the chariots of Yahweh by Shem Shai, man. So this is going to be an epic destruction within America, Babylon the Great specifically, and even the land of Israel, to purge it from the filth that's over there. Okay, so this is back in Ezekiel 38, and I'm going to bring this out KJV for the second time. And the word of the Lord Yahweh by Shemeshai came unto me, saying, A son of man, set thy face against Gog, the land of Magog, the chief prince of Meshach and Tubal, and prophesy against him, and say, Thus said the Lord God Yahweh by Shem Yahushai, Behold, I am against thee, O Gog, the chief prince of Meshach and Tubal, and I will turn thee back and put hooks into thy jaws, and I will bring thee forth and all thine army, horse and horsemen, all of them clothed with all sorts of armor, even a great company with bucklers and shields, all of them handling swords, Persia, Ethiopia, and Libya with them, all of them with shield and helmet, Persia representing Edom. Okay. Gomer and all his bands, the house of Togarmah, of the north quarters, and all his bands and many people with thee. All right, because we're going into which modern day, which this verse is referring to the modern day Turks or Turkish people of Turkey, who will abandon their NATO alliance and join BRICS. Okay. Verse 7, be thou prepared and prepare for thyself, thou and all thy company that are assembled unto thee, and be thou guard unto them. So Russia is going to be a guard, against all those who seeks refuge from the wine of Babylon, the Western philosophy of America, being used to, justify its targeted destruction against these respective, territories and empires, man, or territories of these empires that opposes the satanic NWO agenda, all right, including the dragons of Arabia. So this is 2 Ezra 15 and 28, and it says, behold, an horrible vision and the appearance thereof from the east, okay, once again, the northeastern hemisphere, all right, lining up with Revelation 16 and 12 and Jeremiah 50 and 9. Verse 29, 2 Ezra 15 and 29, where the nations of the dragons of Arabia shall come out with many chariots, and a multitude of them shall be carried as a wind upon earth, that all they which hear them may fear and tremble. Also the Carmanians, modern day Edonians, raging in wrath, shall go forth as the wild boars of the wood, and with great power shall they come and join battle with them, and shall waste a portion of the land of the Syrians, all right, known to be a bloody nation. Hence why Syria is another spiritual alias for America. Pursuing Nahum 3 and 1 says, woe to the bloody city is all full of lies and robbery. Okay. Which description fulfills the, represents the epitome of what America represents. This is verse 31. And then shall the dragons have the upper hand, remembering the nature, and if they shall turn themselves, conspiring together in great power to persecute them, the modern day Assyrians, the modern day bloody nation. So why Psalm 55 and 23 says, bloody deceitful men shall not live out half their days. Okay, because you devils have an insatiable appetite to shed blood, at the expense of many lives for global dominion. So this is verse 32. Then these shall be troubled blood, and keep silence due to power, and shall flee. And from the land of the Assyrians shall the enemy besiege them and consume some of them. And in their host shall be fear and dread, and strife among their kings. All right. Behold, clouds from the east and from the north and to the south, and they are very horrible to look upon, full of wrath and storm. They shall smite one upon another, and they shall smite down a great multitude of stars upon the earth, even their own star. I'm going to go into the nukes. It goes into stars falling from heaven in St. Matthew, the 24th chapter. And blood shall be from the sword unto the belly, and dung of men into the camel's hole. Okay, because what it says in Jeremiah the 25th chapter, how essentially it goes into how their dead body should be like dung on the ground. That's how bad this how great the fatality, the multitude of fatalities is going to be, man. Just a bunch of dead soldiers within these heathen nations waging war against themselves that will simultaneously wage war against Yahushua when he returns. And this is the battle of Armageddon in a nutshell. And the aftermath of which is the salvation of Israel from the lands of the captivities of their enemies, including mainly America, Babylon the Great, that north country in Jeremiah the 16th chapter, okay, which is North America specifically, okay, Central America, South America, and Canada, where the bulk of the captives of Jerusalem are located, the authentic Israelites. So let me end this off on that note. Pray this lessons further edifying, exhorting to elect, and give all praise, glory, infinite honor to my power, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, who is the God of living, Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Barach Hadash, and double honors to the apostles and elder bishops, great millstone for teaching and ruling well, and shalom once again to the elect, Wa Mawath, Lababal, soon and very soon, and on to the next one.